Aloe Constant says, how can you think you'll ever have an electoral prayer unless you embrace undocumented migrants and bring them out of the shadows? I kind of agree with you, Aloe. I think we should embrace undocumented migrants and bring them out of the shadows. I categorically think we should. I think we seal the border, and then we basically say to people who've been here illegally, congratulations, you're guest workers. You get a driver's license or whatever. We know who you are. You get some benefits. We treat you in hospitals. You get some benefits, but you don't get the vote. If you want to ask me what benefits guest workers should get and not get, I'd be up for discussion, but I stop at the vote. Because when they can vote themselves the rest of the benefits. Guest worker programs work throughout the world. A guest worker program with Mexico would be spectacular. Because if we weren't paying social benefits to these people, then cheap labor from Mexico would be nothing but a gain for us. We'd know who they are. We'd know what their benefits are. They'd know what their legal rights are. They wouldn't be living in shadows or fear or anything like that. It'd be marvelous. And as long as it's a guest worker program and people aren't coming here for benefits, then it's like we'll take as many people as the market will bear. When the economy's humming, we'll take more of them. When the economy slows down, we'll take fewer of them. And when I say take them, they just won't have a job. So if they come here and they don't have a job, they wouldn't stay. So I think guest worker program is a grand idea. I think this business that we have now is terrible. But yes, Gloomhound, Vikings in China. The Vikings were everywhere. I don't care if there's no evidence of the Vikings being in China. I say the Vikings were everywhere. At least one or two Vikings probably got to China. Sometimes the comment sections catch my eye. By the way, the greatest thing about the Vikings were the berserkers. And I'm telling you, Gloomhound, there may not be an archaeological record for it, but I'm telling you, a culture that produced the berserkers means there were Vikings in China trying to conquer China. Probably 2 or 3 guys in a canoe, but I bet that's enough. Berserkers were, this is my limited information coming to bay here. Berserkers were Viking warriors who went mad. They went berserk. That's where the term came from. They were advertised as being mad. They were shock troops. And the thing I like most about the berserkers were apparently when the Viking longboats were approaching the shore of Ireland or France or Britain or wherever the hell they were going to rape and murder and pillage and burn and steal, as they were approaching the shore, the berserkers would get so close to this enemy territory that they'd go berserk. And they'd jump off the boat and they'd swim to shore ahead of everybody else and they'd start hacking at rocks with their swords. There's stories about berserkers who would start biting trees. How do you not love guys like that? I mean, those guys, the Vikings were awful. And if I'd been in Ireland with an AR-15, we would have stopped the Viking incursions right there. But nevertheless, you got to admire a culture that has berserkers. So I'm telling you, if there were Vikings in China trying to take over China, there's probably 3 or 4 of them. They damn near pulled it off too, I bet. Okay, let's see, moving on. So I do I'm not going to give you an argument about keeping guest workers in shadows. We need a solution. And the solution should be that. And I think they should have a pathway to citizenship, the Mexicans who are here. I just don't think they get to cut in line ahead of anyone else. I think they come forward, they get their guest worker program, they get limited benefits. When I say limited benefits, I mean things like legal protection, driver's license, that kind of thing. If they get raped or murdered, they can call the cops, that kind of stuff. But they don't get all these social welfare benefits and they don't get the vote. And if you've been here 20 years, 30 years, congratulations. You're in line. We'll get to you sooner or later. So something. Anyway. Midi Juju Magumbo. If Midi Juju Magumbo is in fact your real name, then my real name is Bat Guano. Seriously, if Midi Juju Magumbo is your real name, then you have the most awesome real name in the world, Gigi. Midi Juju Magumbo. Midi Juju Magumbo says, this is too easy. I heard this one at a dinner party the other night. Quote, how much pain do the American people need to suffer at the gas pumps before they give in and buy more fuel-efficient vehicles? Once again, the power of the market to solve all of these so-called difficult, deep philosophical questions is, in fact, pretty simple. People will buy fuel-efficient vehicles when the price of gasoline makes them cost-effective. Any other questions? And anytime we try to add subsidies into the mix, we're just screwing things up. If fuel prices continue to rise, there will come a point where the high cost of hybrid cars or electric cars will become competitive and people will start buying them. And then something miraculous happens, because once enough people start to buy these kind of cars, then critical mass occurs. The market once again steps up. Instead of legislating highly fuel-efficient cars or hybrid cars, Prius for example, when enough people decide they want those cars because the prices of fuel are so high, then people start producing those cars. But once they start producing those cars, somebody else starts producing those cars as well. And then they start getting into competition to lower the price, and the technology gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, just like everything else. And the wonders of the market take place, and pretty soon fuel-efficient cars are less expensive than they used to be, and less expensive than a conventional car running on expensive fuel. But the answer is, how much pain do the American people need to suffer at the gas pumps? Well, the answer is an individual answer, right? I mean, I have a car that gets 17 miles to the gallon. I used to have a car that got 29 miles to the gallon. And I got the car that gets 17 miles to the gallon because I can afford to pay it. It has higher performance than the car that got 29 miles per gallon. And I can afford the performance, and I can afford the gas. It's like everything else in the world. It should be a free choice made by an individual. So I can afford now a more expensive car, and I can afford more money for gasoline because I've been working very, very hard, and I've been improving my skill set. I'm becoming more rare. I'm becoming more useful. And the more useful and rare I become, the more money I make. It's true for a janitor as much as for a fake celebrity internet pundit. It's true. I've been working my entire life, and now I'm starting to reap some of the rewards of that hard work and all of those pieces that I had to put in place to sit here and talk to you people for actual money, which is what I'm doing. Although I'd do it even if you weren't paying me because I like you so much. I just wouldn't do it as often. There's your answer. So when you say how much pain do the American people need to suffer at the gas pumps, that's kind of the kind of question that a progressive would ask. It's a question about the masses, isn't it, Mitty? How much will the masses put up with? Well, there's no two people in the country that have quite exactly the same budget for fuel. I'm sure many of them have the same number for fuel, but really when you get right down to it, we're all individuals. We can afford to pay what we can afford to pay. Some of us can afford to pay more. Some of us can afford to have extremely fuel inefficient vehicles. Some of us go to a great deal of expense and effort to build things like monster trucks, which or tractor pulls or something, which are measured in numbers of gallons to the mile. And if that's what they want to do with their money, then that is their business, baby. And if you want to light a jet engine and put a jet engine on a semi-truck, I forget the guy, I've almost got his name now. Oh, it's right on the tip of my tongue. The guy does it at air shows. Doggone it, it'll show up in 10 seconds here in the comments section. But if a guy wants to set up a semi-truck with a gigantic, gas turbine jet engine on the back that generates 30,000 pounds of thrust or something, and then go blowing down the flight line at an air show, and put out a tongue of flame 80 feet long, then not only is that okay with me, that's like I'll pay money to see that, and so a lot of other people. So that's where he gets his money to pay for that fuel, by people paying to see how awesome it is to see a car with a truck with 30,000 horsepower. You get the idea, right? This is what freedom allows you to do. Freedom allows everybody to make their own decisions and have as much fun as they want to have, and as much fun as they can afford to have. And the more you make, the more fun you can generally afford to have. But the problem is, the more you make, generally speaking, the more you have to work. And so the more you work, the more you make, the more you make, the more fun you have. The less you make, the less you work, the less you make, the less fun you have. And when I say less you work, I'm not trying to say that poor people who have jobs in janitorial services and stuff, I'm not saying they don't work hard. They work very, 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 very hard. I don't have any disrespect for poor people, needless to say. As a matter of fact, I would, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I mean this from the depths of my soul, my respect, admiration, and affection for the guy that comes in here and empties the garbage cans every night is infinitely higher than it is for these highly educated layabout D-bags, Shockwave, thank you, that sit around and collect benefits or talk about how wealth needs to be redistributed. My respect and admiration for the janitor in this building exceeds by orders of magnitude higher respect and admiration for this gentleman than for these douchebag professors at Berkeley who talk about how evil money is and how rich people hate the poor. I don't hate the poor. I hate the idiots. I hate the complainers. I hate the hypocrites. I hate these progressive D-bags who do nothing but bitch about how awful things are and are all about stealing money from working people under the cover of helping the poor when in point of fact, poor working people are the people I have the highest admiration for in the country. They just need to work smarter. And the guy who comes in here and cleans these empties these garbage bags is a fine fellow, and he's doing an honorable thing, and he's feeding his family, I assume. At the very least, he's taking care of himself, and he works like an animal, as I do. We just do different things. And what he needs to do is he needs to take some of his excess time, of which I'm sure he does not have much, but I didn't have much either, and I don't have much now, and learn how to make himself more rare. Pick up a language or pick up some other skill, or get together with two other guys and start a janitorial service on your own and offer better service at lower prices. And then next thing you know, off you go. And if he doesn't want to do that, that's fine too. That's fine too. But anybody can. Anybody can.